Not even the dawn can drive it away.
Tonight they'll be more beautiful than ever before.
Last person you see.
I dreamt you wrote me the most beautiful love letter, only you didn't want me to know it was you. So you cut out all the words from newspapers and magazines, just like the letters I've been getting in the mail. Only somebody saw you doing it, so you killed her. Would he be serious about murdering people?
He's asking for advice.
From me?
It's what you give in your economy.
That's a very lovely dress, Alice.
It's my mother's. She's dead.
My family's everything to me. Darling, cut the motor off.
You let mother die, now you're killing me.
Mother died of cancer, darling, you know that.
And it wasn't a knife job either. Those wounds were made by a long pair of scissors.
No shit.
Hi, this is Debbie Sue Voorhees, Tina from Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues. This is episode 277, and it is a very special
276.
77.
No, it's 276. 275 was the last episode we released.
But the last episode was 276, was Blood Cult.
I'm pretty sure that was 275.
Well, this could go on and on. Happy birthday to us. Fascinating. But as I'm sure you agree, so it's either episode 277 or 276. But can you blame us after 12 years if we can't get our numbers straight? So whichever episode it is, we are covering the 1980 slasher-esque giallo California psycho, sexy, sleazy thriller with Klaus Kinski, Schizoid. So from the golden age of the slasher movie and 1980 specifically, we are going to be covering that as the main pick, as our happy birthday present to us. And whether or not it's a good birthday present, it remains to be seen. But 12 years. After 12 years, did you ever think we'd get to this point, Nathan?
I wasn't sure. I was hoping, because I like chatting movies with you guys.
Yes, and what do you think? Because, of course, next year, this time is going to be Unlucky or perhaps Lucky 13. And maybe we will have a Friday 13th to cover, possibly for our 13th episode. There's certainly going to be, isn't it, Crystal Lake seems to be shaping up nicely, doesn't it? Is it Brad Fuller, the TV show? Which I read today, or in the last couple of days, Adrienne King is going to have a recurring role in it, which is going to be interesting.
And apparently Kevin Williamson is going to be involved in some capacity as well.
Yes, and it's probably in the
Alice
last... Sorry, Nathan.
Is going to be in the show.
Well...
It's a prequel, Nathan.
Yeah.
Oh, how dare you all.
No trap door for that one, Nathan.
Yeah, so Erik, you don't expect Alice to turn back up in Friday 13th in Crystal Lake, do you?
Well, if it's a prequel, then she can, but it sort of doesn't really fit with the timeline, because she's supposed to be from New York or something, and she's a newbie in Crystal Lake in the first one, so they're going to have to retroactively fit her in there. I don't know how.
Not to mention Adrienne King's in her 60s now, so
yes,
unless
true.
they're going to do some refaking on her face, then I don't know how that's
imagine she's playing a different role.
Yeah.
She could be Mrs. Voorhees.
She could be, although I did see on IMDb it had her down as mannequin in an ice pick shop. So who knows?
Nathan, any response to that one?
Mannequin in ice pick shop? Is that what you said?
Yep.
I did.
An ice pick shop?
It's a joke.
Oh. Oh, no. She's not dead. Don't try to trick me.
I'm not trying to. Well, if it's a prequel and it's going to be set, presumably it's going to be set in the 1950s. I don't know, but all will be revealed. Hopefully, apparently they've want to make 4 seasons of it, but they've had one go ahead. So yeah, it remains to be seen what actually happens. But Erik, 12 years, you get less for murder.
12 years a slave.
Yes, indeed. Sometimes it feels like that. A slave of love to our dear listeners, of course.
Yes, as Brian Ferry once sang.
Exactly. And Joseph, 12 years. What are your thoughts on The Hysteria Continues, the last thing? And we're not the longest running horror podcast, but we certainly must be up there.
I don't know, considering a lot of those podcasts don't really post episodes anymore. Maybe we are. But considering all the sound problems we had in the beginning, I didn't think we'd last 12 minutes.
Well, yes.
You know, kind of like Eric, you know, in bed.
I think Night of the Living podcast is older than us. I think they're still updating, but we are still around. And talking of which, if you've been listening to the podcast for a long, long time, way back in the mist of time, this may jog your memory.
Matron, take them away!
Yes, we used to have all sorts of sound clips. And of course, the reason I played that is we are about to go off-piste on Patreon. And I have the pleasure of going first. And my pick, which we're recording later today, is Carry On Camping. So, so if you want to see hear what Kenneth Williams was asking Matron to take away, then, if you're a Patreon supporter, then you can tune in for that. And if you're not, then please do sign up and join in the fun. So, let's talk a little bit about what we've been watching recently. Nathan, would you like to go first? Have you seen anything you'd like to tell us about?
I finally watched the Terror Train remake, mainly because I really want to watch the sequel. So last night I decided to watch the remake, and I kind of agree with what you guys have said. I do like it, but for the most part, it does follow the original, like, kind of closely, maybe a little too closely, like with the death scenes and stuff. I mean, the death scenes are more graphic, but they're, like say Mitchie's death scene, and just a lot of the death scenes are kind of since we saw the original, we knew what to expect. I mean, even in the chase scene with the killer and the final girl, Elena, like a lot of the spots, like ripping her earring out and the fire extinguisher and all that. I mean, you can tell that whoever made this was a fan of the original, because they really did try to recreate the original. But really where it got great was with the reveal. I thought that was amazing. A lot of fun, different, and I liked that. So overall, yeah, I really liked the Terror Train remake. I can't wait to see, the sequel to the remake. I'm very much looking forward to that.
Which is miles better than the first film in every aspect. Well, the remake, I mean, not the original Terror Train. But, I think you really will enjoy that sequel, Nathan.
I would concur, because I definitely enjoyed the sequel, the sequel, Terror Train 2 to the remake, although I did enjoy that as well. But I thought the first half was a bit pedestrian, kind of remake of the first, the 1980 film. But I did, we talked about it kind of ad nauseum, but I did enjoy it going off the rails, and also the reveal of the new killer in the remake. But the sequel, is just a lot of trashy fun. So it definitely has that feel of a kind of a trashier, and of course, I mean that we've loved, like trash is good, early 80s slasher movie. So I think you'll enjoy it, Nathan. But obviously we no spoilers, because if you haven't seen it yet, you definitely need to get around to it. But Eric, I don't think you've seen either of those yet, have you?
No, I saw the first one.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I can't remember a huge amount about it, apart from that, it did remind me in many places as being a shot-for-shot remake almost of the original. I did quite enjoy it. I haven't seen the sequel yet, though, so that's something to watch later.
I mean, just a quick question. I mean, if there was another remake of a classic 80s slasher movie, that it was Peacock, wasn't it, that did that, I think? Who did the...
No, it's Tubi.
Oh, Tubi, that's right. Sorry, it's a Tubi original. If there was another remake of an early 80s slasher movie, which one would you like to be seen done? Obviously, there's all sorts of questions. I mean, I'm firmly of the thought that just a remake doesn't take anything away from the original film, and hopefully introduces people to the original. Is there any film that you think could benefit from a remake?
Rabbit Grannies?
Yeah.
I would watch a remake of Rabbit Grannies for sure.
I think maybe something like The Prowler.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Because I love The Prowler, but it does dip in the middle where there's no slasher action. So maybe they might be able to improve on the pacing.
I agree. That's the one that immediately comes to mind. Obviously, there's been remakes of My Bloody Valentine and kind of numerous redos of Silent Night, Deadly Night. But yeah, some of the kind of lesser seen slashers might be. Like House on Sorority Row might be. No, of course that did get a remake, didn't it? But although it's kind of relatively loose remake, obviously Black Christmas did. But there's a kind of a. But yeah, it remains to be seen. I think it kind of divides people down the middle, doesn't it? This kind of remake business. So, but Nathan, sorry, has anything else you've seen?
I watched The Menu.
Ah, okay.
I loved it. I thought it was great. It's a little different than, I guess, the typical group of people, like kind of in like one room, and I guess a bunch of crazy stuff goes down. I mean, there's several movies that are like that, and I do love that setup, which is one thing that drew me to The Menu. But I did love it. I feel like the less said about it, the better. Because the thing is, I went into this movie like completely blind. I mean, I knew the basic plot from what Justin had said, but other than that, I didn't know anything. And that was the perfect way to watch this movie, because it's just got a lot of like fun, unexpected sequences. And, it's got a really this streak of dark humor that is a lot of fun. Like every course, meal course that they go through, it puts the ingredients on the side, and then sometimes the course is actually like something insane, like not even food related, like it could be like a death or something, and then they'll put the ingredients for that on the side. I mean, it's just like goofy, or just stuff like that that's really darkly humorous that makes you want to keep watching. And the cast is amazing. I thought Nicholas Hoult as like this very pretentious foodie was fantastic in the movie. Like his character is just so ridiculous and pathetic. So it's got a great cast, great storyline. It was never boring for me, and I thought the finale was great when he discusses what he considers the worst food ever, which I won't spoil. So there you go.
Is it Turkish delight?
Well, it's kind of close, I kind of guess, isn't it? Have you not seen it, Eric?
No, not yet. No.
Okay. And Joseph, did you catch it?
No, but I really want to after those two kind of glowing recommendations. Is it on Netflix, Nathan?
I don't think it was Netflix. It was one of the other streaming sites.
Is it on Napster?
Napster, yeah. And then I decided to catch it again on LimeWire.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I've given my thoughts. It'll be interesting when Erik and Joseph have seen it, so we can all discuss it together. So thank you, Nathan. Anything else?
I feel like there was something else, but I can't remember it, so I'll save it for next time.
Okay. Well, thank you, Erik. Have you had a chance to catch anything?
No, just Schizoid and Carry On Camping. Yeah.
Okay. Well, no worries. But look forward to hearing your views on those, Erik. So, Joseph, how about you? Anything you've seen?
Yes, I watched Sick, the new slasher film co-written by Kevin Williamson. And there's not much plot here. It's set during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, and someone appears to be contact tracing by way of murder. And the main focus is these two girls. They're isolating at this impossibly large cabin. I mean, my God, who owns this cabin? And they find themselves kind of targeted by this mystery assailant, and he's wearing a mask, like a mask you'd wear during the pandemic. That's the gist of it, really. I mean, it's shot really well and acted really well, and the last 20 minutes essentially becomes like this one long chase sequence done reasonably well, but I don't know. I didn't really care about the main character to start. I mean, she wasn't written to be unlikable or anything, but she's so aloof and stoic that it's kind of hard to identify with her. I mean, I guess her personality makes sense within the context of the story, but that's the thing too. I'm kind of over the pandemic. Tying those real world horrors into like a throwaway piece of, stalk and slash trash doesn't really work, and kind of sucks the fun out of the set pieces. And some of those set pieces are, really excellent. And there's including one where a character has to pretend to be dead to avoid the killer. And I must admit that I really admired the film's kind of audacity to end with this really awesome sequence that kind of calls to mind the final fight in The Burning, and especially the final fight at the end of Friday the 13th. But I don't know. I think you might have watched it. There might have been, if you look carefully. I don't know. I think you might have watched this one, Justin, and this is perfectly watchable, but the COVID stuff, I think not only dates the film, hideously, but it really just kind of spoils the popcorn fun, as it were. So, I mean, it's, like I said, it's watchable, but it's not something that I'm, I was hoping to kind of be enamored with it because it is Kevin Williamson and I like his stuff, but I don't know. This one just didn't really do much for me, if I'm honest.
Yeah, well, I think I liked it a fair bit more than you did, Joseph, in so much I was wondering why more people hadn't used the COVID-19 pandemic as kind of a framing device for a horror movie. I thought I thought it worked really well within that, because it kind of amped up the kind of paranoia and the weird kind of disorienting feeling of kind of lockdown and sort of everyone wearing a mask. And I also like that kind of clever inversion of everyone was wearing a mask, including the killer. So it's rather than only the killer wearing a mask in a horror movie. I mean, I thought it was kind of I think it's only like 82 minutes or something. It's kind of doesn't outstay its welcome. I mean, it's fairly lean in both there's not much story there really, although I did like how, without giving anything away at all, but how it kind of wraps itself up with the COVID themes, but also given it's Kevin Williamson, it kind of stays away from the kind of like those kind of postmodern horror pop references mostly, although he does slip in a Jason Voorhees gag in there, and also there's nods to the original Friday the 13th. And a few kind of sight gags, nods to Silent Night, Deadly Night. But I thought it was really, I really enjoyed it. It was directed by, I think, is it Mark Hyman? So I think who directed quite a few.
John Hyams.
John Hyman, sorry.
He's Peter Hyams' son, I think, isn't he?
Well, he directed quite a few episodes of Black Summer, the Netflix zombie TV series, which I really enjoyed. It's kind of like a kind of action horror. It was kind of almost like not found footage, but that kind of that feel to it. Everything was kind of it had that kind of same kind of propulsion, I thought. And I kind of like, I enjoyed it for what it was. I kind of also liked the way that the killer was kind of dressed like a ninja. Which I thought was quite sort of clever, in the way that they kind of crept around and just kind of sort of just like this phantom just kind of walking behind people and appearing a bit like The Shape. But then it kind of very much goes into that kind of violent violent fight sequences that you might see in something like Scream. But I like, things, I like the way that they've kind of played around with the whole mask thing. And there's that great scene, and again, not giving anything away because it's in the trailer, I think, where the one of the characters runs up to a woman in the car after being chased, while she's being chased by the killer, and the woman won't let her get in the car because she hasn't got a mask on. Just things like that. I thought it was fun. So I think it's, if you go into it open mind, it's a fun popcorn slasher, and I think it does some interesting things with the COVID-19 thing. For me, anyway, I maybe got more mileage out of it than you, Joseph. But that's what life's all about.
Yeah, like all the allusions to the mask stuff. I think that stuff's kind of fun, but I don't know. They kind of get heavy-handed with the reveal. I'm trying not to spoil it here, but they invoke all those real-world horrors, and the fact that we don't really get to know the characters enough, in my opinion, kind of sinks it a little bit. But I understand, where you're coming from on that. But all the popcorn stuff is actually really done very well, so I will recommend it on that.
Cool. Okay. Right. And hopefully we'll see what Erik and Nathan think when they get a chance to watch it. Presumably neither of you seen it yet.
No. Did the killer do his own research?
Wow. Yeah, actually he does.
Yeah. It's kind of, what I liked about it was that Kevin Williamson was it's kind of lampooning people who took COVID-19 too seriously, as in like everything was wiped down, and they were like, and it kind of lampoons people who didn't take it seriously enough or kind of dismissed it. So I thought it was quite, it's quite sort of clever. It's not going to it doesn't reinvent the wheel like Scream did, but I thought it was fun, and also has the kind of ending that if you like something like Urban Legends, and you appreciate the kind of the nods to kind of those the more popcorny, over the top kind of endings like Happy Birthday to Me or The Initiation or films like that you'd probably get a kick out of. So, well, Joseph, is there anything else you saw?
I feel like Nathan. I feel like there is something, but I can't remember. So I guess that's it for this week.
Okay, right. Well, thank you. Well, the only thing obviously I saw Sick, and the other thing I saw was, and I reviewed it for Hysteria Lives, is the Brazilian slasher from 1984, Choque de Verso Diabolica, which I'm sure I'm not pronouncing correctly, which is a film that it's obviously from the Golden Age, and it's not really known outside its native Brazil. And somebody back in the midst of time, about 20 years ago, sent me a VHS tape from Brazil of the movie. And because it was, I think in Brazil, they use CCAM, which is like the French equivalent of PAL and NTSC, which meant that it played in black and white on my VCR back then in Brazilian, in Portuguese with no subs. So it was barely watchable, and my Spanish is passable, but my Portuguese is non-existent. So I never really kind of bother watching it. But with the advent of self-generated, auto-generated subtitles on YouTube now, I can just about piece it together. And I was contacted by a Brazilian kind of author of kind of pop culture, Marco Antonio S. Freitas, who knew the director Jai Correa, and he offered to interview him as well about the film, which he did. So it's kind of an interesting movie. It's kind of set. It's interesting so much that the director said he'd never seen a slasher movie before, and was surprised that his movie was compared to Friday the 13th, which he kind of watched after making this movie. But the gist of it is a group of people stay behind after a rock concert at a remote venue, awaiting for the equipment to be collected in the morning. And somebody comes in, locks the door, and starts killing them off one by one. So very much is that classic 70s, 80s slasher movie kind of plot. But it kind of winds in all sorts of things to do with authoritarianism and the kind of fascism and all sorts of different things, but also in a highly exploitative movie. Lots of much more nudity than you might, and sex than you would expect in a North American slasher. By ironically, a lot less blood, because even though they were under a dictatorship at the time, the censors didn't mind nudity, but they didn't like violence. So, thank you again to Marco for setting that up. And if you want to read my review and also the interview with the director, then that's over at Hysteria Lives. So, but it's good to finally tick that one off, because it's one that I've been meaning to get around to for literally 20 years. So, and I'm guessing, but I don't know for sure. I doubt any of you guys have actually had a chance to watch it yet, have you?
No. But I did read the review, so.
Cool. Well, it is on YouTube, and hopefully maybe one day the director talked about trying to locate the original print. So possibly our friends at various labels might be interested in putting it out at some point in the future. So we'll bring you any news on that when we can. So, okay. Well, I think it's time probably to get to the main feature, which is...
What about the quiz?
Oh, of course. The quiz. How could I forget?
It's our 12th birthday, so I concocted a quiz for us all, and you forgot. How could you?
Yeah. Anyway, here's the trailer for Schizoid. No, here's the quiz. So we've all been looking forward to it so much. So we'll see what happens. But Joseph, I don't think I have any quiz music to hand. So can you drop some quiz music, 70s quiz music or 80s quiz music into this?
Oh, I probably will.
Okay. And you can bring us in when you're ready.
Okay, well, this is 4 rounds, and the first round is 1986, AKA. So basically, I'm going to give you an AKA or two, and you tell me what movie I'm talking about. And Eric, you've been given the honorific of choosing door number 1, 2, or 3 first, so which will it be?
Big number 2, please.
Okay, you might get this one. This 1986 slasher film had a peculiar working title, Aladdin Sane. Its better known title is...
Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives.
That is correct. 1 point for Eric.
Thank you.
Moving on to Justin now. Justin, door number 1 or door number 3?
I'll go for my position in this quiz, which is number 1.
Ooh. This 1986 slasher film's French title translates to Weekend of Terror, while in Germany its title translates to The Horror Party. Its better known title is...
So Weekend of Terror, Horror Party, 1986. Oh, God, I can't remember. I think I know the film, but I'm blanking on the title. God, 1986. Killer Party?
No, I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Nathan, would you like to go for the steal on this?
Would, but I was going to guess Killer Party as well. I'm going to say 1986. I'm going to say Snapshot.
No, I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Eric, would you like to go for the steal?
Well, I too would have thought Killer Party instantly, but I'm going to guess April Fool's Day.
And that is correct, Eric.
Woohoo!
Eric with 2 points and leaving you two in the dust. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
I haven't even got to answer a question yet. All I had was a pickup, so don't give me that malarkey.
Oh, rhubarb lady.
Here's your question behind door number 3, Nathan. This 1986 slasher film's Spanish title, Camada, translates to the word litter, like as in don't be a litter bug. Its better known title is...
Killer Party?
No, I'm sorry. Eric, would you like to go for the steal on that?
Litter. Chopping Mall?
No, I'm sorry. Justin?
Kamada. 1986. I don't know. Sleepaway Camp 2? I don't know.
No, I'm sorry. The correct answer is Blood Hook.
How random.
Does the killer kill people because they're littering in the lake? I'm wondering if that's the reason.
No, he doesn't. He kills people because the noise they make like messes with his mind.
Okay, well, you can understand why I wouldn't remember that movie, but
well, then you all can understand why I didn't get that one right.
Well, we're ending that round with Eric in the lead with 2, and Justin and Nathan are tied with 0. Yeah. So this next round is the review round. Now, this is an audio round, so basically, we're going to play a clip, and you have to tell me what movie you're reviewing on the podcast. So, Justin, you're up first. If you can play your sound clip, please.
It's so episodic as well that you've got you've got, like, say, the character of, is it who he's one of the kind of frat boys. He just disappears for he's put one of the main characters in the beginning of the movie, and then he just disappears apart from one little scene at the end.
Do you know that, Justin?
Now what slasher movies have got frat boys in, I wonder?
Lots of them.
Exactly. Oh, God. Girls' Night Out?
That is correct. Woo-hoo. Justin gets a point. All right, Nathan, you're up next. So if you can play Nathan's sound clip, please.
I love the finale, when the killer's chasing the final girl. I like how, the killer's in front of her, and then, she runs, around the crates or whatever, and then comes to the other side, and the killer's in front of her again. It reminded me of the chase scene in the forest, which obviously ripped off.
Do you know that, Nathan?
I can actually picture that in my mind, that, the crates and stuff. I have no idea. Final Exam.
No, I'm sorry. Eric, you can steal this.
Yeah, I have no idea either, so I'm just going to go with The Prey.
No, sorry. Justin, can you steal it?
The only clue I had from there was to do with crates, and I'm wondering, as we're covering another Donna Wilkes movie, there were crates at the end of Bloodsong?
No, there were crates at the end of Bloodsong, but that's not the movie Nathan reviewed. Nathan was actually talking about The Phantom of Soho.
That is so unfair.
You sounded enthusiastic about Phantom of
Yeah, you
Soho
did.
there.
Well, I was being nice.
That was clever of me, wasn't it?
Oh, that was awful
Erik.
of you.
Eric, here is your sound clip. Can you guess it?
It does pile on the cliches. Now, they probably weren't cliches at the time they were making the film, but, I mean, you have all the stereotypical characters, the jock, the nerd, the studious girl who's obviously going to be the heroine, and the slutty girl who's sleeping with the professor, all that, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, I'm thinking of two. I am going to go with Final Exam.
That is correct.
Woohoo!
That's 3 for Eric.
And, you could have given me Final Exam, but you gave me the one that I liked the least. What's next? Do I get a question on Silent Rage?
Ooh.
You might.
Ooh.
All right, that ends round 2. Eric is in the lead with 3. Justin is in the middle, like an Oreo, with 1. And Nathan has 0.
Because you sabotaged me.
Ooh, it's Nathan being the Inga this episode.
Yeah,
Totally Inga.
Now, this round is the music round. Now, this is another audio round. So basically, again, you'll hear music from a slasher film. You have to tell me what slasher film it's from. You don't have to tell me the name of the song or who does the song. Nathan, you are up first. So if you can pick between door number 1, 2, or 3, please.
I'll go with 1. Is it Terror on Tour?
No, I'm sorry, Nathan. That's not it. Eric, can you steal it?
Is it... Oh, I'm trying to think of ones with rock bands in them. It's not Sorority House House and Sorority Row.
No, I'm sorry. That's not it. Justin, can you steal it?
It's not Graduation Day?
No, I'm sorry. The answer was Rush Week. It was Booby Trap by the Dickies.
It sounded like the Dickies. I was thinking Killer Clowns from Outer Space, but then I realised that's not a slasher movie.
That's because you've always got Dickies on your mind, Eric.
How rude.
Okay, Eric, door number 2 or door number 3?
Big number 2 again, please.
All right, Justin.
And I will lay beside you and listen to the things you have to say.
My God, is that Dolly Parton? I'm trying to think of things that would have maybe a country and western song in them. I'm going to go with Sweet 16.
No, I'm sorry. Justin, can you steal this one?
Along with Eric, I'm trying to think of films that have country and western themes. So one that springs to mind is Death Valley.
Nope, I'm sorry. Nathan?
The Toolbox Murders.
That is correct. It's George Deaton playing Pretty Lady in the Toolbox Murders. All right, so that leaves Eric with door number 3. So if you can play that for me, please, Justin.
No, it's Justin.
Yeah, it's my turn.
Okay, yeah, door number 3 then.
You said that you were coming over.
Oh, I like whatever that is. I don't know what it is, but I do like the sound of it.
Yeah, that to me, that I don't recognise it, but it sounds to me kind of Bangles-esque late 80s, which kind of would lead me to take an educated guess at Slumber Party Massacre 2.
That is incorrect. Nathan, can you steal this one?
Can you replay the clip?
You said that you were coming over.
Yeah, I do not know. I'm going to say if it's... Is it Blotterin'?
No, that's not it. Eric, do you know?
As I said, I don't recognize it. It does sound catchy. Would it, as Justin was saying, it sounds maybe mid to late 80s, so I'm going to guess Killer Party.
No, I'm sorry. Actually, that was Silent Night, Deadly Night. It was Merry Christmas, Baby by Perry Botkin.
Which we did a commentary for only 2 weeks ago, yeah. And do you think that we would remember that?
Yeah, you'd think you would, but nope.
Eric, would you say the song is very catchy goo-goo? You get it?
No, I don't understand.
Oh, dear.
Oh, the humanity.
All right, 4th and final round, and this is Victims of Friday the 13th. So we're going to go with who's in dead last, and that's Justin and Nathan tied. So I'm going to go alphabetically and say, Justin, door number 1, 2, or 3.
Curse this N name.
N name. Number 2, I think. It's worked for Erik.
Okay, number 2. In Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning, how does Duke die?
Duke. I'm going to have to take a guess which one's Duke. I'm thinking he may be one of the ones in the car that dressed like leather boys. Does he get the flare to the mouth?
No, I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Nathan, can you steal this one?
I think I can, because I'm trying to remember who Duke is, and I'm trying to do the process of elimination because the name doesn't 100% sound familiar, and I've seen that movie a million times. So I'm wondering if he's not the ambulance driver that drives around in the ambulance with Roy, the one that makes fun of Joey's death, and he dies. I think he gets his throat cut, but we don't see it. We just see his body.
So is that your final answer?
Throat cut or stake to the head? Which one is it? I'll say throat cut.
And you're picking that character?
Yeah, the ambulance dude.
And you would be correct. Duke is the other ambulance driver who gets his throat slashed with a machete.
It was the owner of the camp that got the spike in the head. That's who that was. Okay.
All right. So, Nathan, door number 1 or door number 3?
Since I intend to finish in first place, I'm going to go with number 1.
Okay.
Yeah, good luck with that.
In Friday the 13th, Part 2, how does Vicky die?
Vicky gets her leg slashed, and then she gets stabbed in the bedroom after she discovers Jason hiding under the covers where Jeff and Sandra were.
And that is correct, Nathan.
Thank you.
All right, Erik. That leaves you with door number 3. In Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, how does Carlson die?
Oh, which one was Carlson? Is he... I'm trying to think what was the name of the boxing dude. Yeah, I'm going to say he's decapitated by Jason's fist.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Justin, can you steal this one?
Carson. I would have, to be honest, I would have gone with what Erik said. So I'm trying to think. Carson, I'm trying to think back to the deaths. Does he get his head smashed into a wall with his brains coming out the back of his head?
No, I'm sorry, that's incorrect. And I think you might have a few issues there, Justin.
Hey, why?
No, I'm just kidding. Nathan, can you steal this one? For the win.
I don't know that I can. Carlson sounds like a last name, so I wonder if this is a trick question. Is it the character that gets beaten with the guitar?
Is that your final answer?
That is my final answer.
Well, that would be incorrect. Carlson is the boat engineer, and he is stabbed in the back with a harpoon.
Of course.
So I did not devise any tiebreaker questions. So Nathan and Erik, you both win this quiz. Justin, you do not.
Anyway, here's the trailer for Schizoid.
Yes.
Anyway, well, I'm not a sore loser, unlike certain people I could mention. So
you get a point, Justin.
How can you just look at me like that and laugh at me?
No, I say I'm not a sore loser. So well done, Nathan. Okay, so here is a trailer for Schizoid.
Dear Julie.
Hello?
Don't let me do it again. Schizoid. Lock your windows. Bolt your doors. Schizoid. Rated R.
An advice columnist in the midst of getting a divorce begins receiving threatening notes from an anonymous stalker. Meanwhile, members of a group therapy session are being murdered by an unknown assailant. So Schizoid is a 1980 slasher movie directed by David Paulson, who previously directed a kind of proto-slasher, The Weekend Murders, some years before. This was one of the first canon slasher movies. And when we get into some background, we'll see kind of quite how this kind of all happened in a bit of a tumultuous kind of way. And not least of all, it stars Klaus Kinski as possibly the most unprofessional therapist in the history of unprofessional therapists in all moviedom.
I use the word contemptible, but you do you, Justin.
Well, it's kind of, yeah, so it's an odd movie. I mean, Schizoid came out in 1980, which arguably was the last year before the slasher template really kind of stuck. Obviously, you know, I'm sure listening to this, you know your slasher lore and the kind of time period. Obviously, 1978 with Halloween. Today, if a movie like Halloween came out, then the kind of the rip-offs would be in quick succession, very, very quickly afterwards. And even these days, with the kind of low-budget studios like The Asylum, rip-offs are coming out even before the main movie it's ripping off comes out sometimes. So Schizoid is a kind of a curious mix. It's quite irresistible in some ways. It has that kind of baked-in, sun-bleached Californian look, which I kind of love, from 1980. It has a kind of this curious mixture of kind of police procedural, almost like a TV kind of, more like something like Chips or Columbo or something. With the kind of the sleaze of films like Don't Answer the Phone or Don't Go in the House, which again were both 1980 as well, with this kind of strange giallo style murder mystery, complete with a killer who dresses in a black fedora, a black coat and black leather gloves, and is killing basically women who attend this therapy session with Klaus Kinski, and meet together in hot tubs and drink wine and talk about their ex-husbands. So someone is going around killing them, but mixed into all of that is very kind of strange kind of set pieces and touches that again just scream 1980. It's kind of a film that wouldn't really be made today. You have Klaus Kinski playing very much in some ways against type, but also very much in type, as well as this kind of creepy ass kind of therapist who watches his daughter Donna Wilkes showering and naked, and has this kind of weird kind of perhaps incestuous relationship with her. It's never really explored. And then he oscillates between this kind of bizarre creep who's also sleeping with members of his therapy group, to being a concerned father. It's a very, very weird film. It also features Christopher Lloyd before Back to the Future as the creepy handyman, which of course is yet another kind of trope of the slasher movie. And stars Mariana Hill, who you may remember from Messiah of Evil, that kind of great, kind of strange 70s drive-in or grindhouse movie, who it plays this kind of agony aunt who's getting letters in the classic kind of slasher setup of like cut out words and letters sent to her, threatening, by someone saying that they're going to kill. And she's in the process of divorcing her husband, Craig Wasson, who went on to be in Brian De Palma's Body Double 4 years after this. It's a real mess of a movie in a lot of ways. It kind of... It doesn't adhere to the slash movie formula at all. It's pretty bloodless, and in fact, even there's a scene in it where somebody gets murdered in a hot tub and slashed to death with scissors, and there's no blood in the hot tub. It's the kind of film that could almost play on TV if it didn't also feature copious amounts of nudity and Klaus Kinski groping every female member of the cast. So it is a film that I couldn't say that I love, but it is so weird and off-kilter and strange, but also has some of that classic 80s slasher-ness to it that I do find it kind of fascinating. And also some of the background on it is fascinating. and love him or loathe him. And of course, what we found out about Klaus Kinski, which of course we'll cover a little bit more later in the show, he's a difficult character to discuss, but he's always watchable, and certainly bizarrely in this movie he seems to be dialing it down. He hasn't got that Nicolas Cage-esque kind of zaniness and over the topness necessary in this movie, apart from a couple of scenes. But yeah, it's a movie that I've meant to cover because I reviewed this back on Hysteria Lives probably over 20 years ago. So watching it again on my Scream Factory Blu-ray, which it came on the double bill with X-Ray, another Canon slasher which came out a few years later, it was kind of like watching it for the first time for me, because I remember I used to have a pre-cert VHS tape of the movie with a very bad transfer from many, many years ago. So I barely remembered anything about the movie. So it was like a first-time watch for me. But yeah, I've got plenty more to say on this, but I'm interested in hearing what you guys think of Schizoid. So starting with Erik, was this a first-time watch for you?
No, I have the same Blu-ray as you, the one with the X-ray on it as well. So I had watched it maybe 5 years ago whenever the Blu-ray came out, and I hadn't seen it since. So like you, I couldn't really remember much about it. I remember somebody being menaced by a pair of scissors when they're lounging in their hot tub, but that was it. I thought it started out quite well. With the murder of one of the group therapy patients in the abandoned house, although that's prefaced by one of those frustrating horror movie scenes where somebody's being chased on a bicycle. She's on the bicycle, she's being chased by a car. Why doesn't she just veer to the left or veer to the right to escape? But no, she just stays cycling in a straight line until she's knocked off her bike. It's always frustrating, but always fun to watch scenes like that. I like the sort of giallo look of the killer as well. Mostly, he appears in black silhouette with the, hat and gloves and a pair of scissors. And the first half of it, I thought, was shaping up to look like it would be a really decent slasher movie. We even get sort of two anonymous teens making out in a barn, and it appears like that they're going to be scissor fodder, if you want, and but their function really is purely to find the dead body of that first victim and sort of set the rest of the story in motion. For me, it kind of loses its way in the middle a little. It begins to focus on characters like, Alison, played by Donna Wilkes, who I thought was cut very much from the same cloth as Sally and Daniela or Magdalena. Possibly not as much fun, but there is a kind of a mopey sulkiness to her that I kind of liked. The slasher action kind of recedes to the background sort of in that second half. I thought it didn't escalate in the way I had hoped, and the police angle I thought was kind of unnecessary in the end, as sometimes can happen in these films. Ultimately they aren't really needed in the end, except to, their sole function is really to set up that telephone line for Julie in her place of work. There's some fun moments though. I liked how the scary man in the elevator turns out to be the gay lover of Julie's neighbor. I thought that was a kind of a funny little moment. And, it was just, as you said, weird seeing Klaus Kinski just all over every female member of the cast. And like you, I noticed that Klaus Kinski was dialed down a little here. I thought Donna Wilkes was the more over-the-top gurning at the camera character than Klaus was. Craig Wasson's character was really odd too. I think they, spoiler alert, could have been a little more subtle with him. I also liked playing Count the Volkswagen Beetles in this. Just everywhere in this film, it was just wall-to-wall Volkswagen Beetles. It must have been the slasher movie car of choice back in the day, because they're also in Friday the 13th 2 and 3. I don't somebody must have got a good deal on them. So for me, the film had the same type of vibe as maybe something like New Year's Evil or Fade to Black. That kind of well-made, but not necessarily 100% slashery type movie from the golden era. It feels like a very different beast to something like Friday the 13th or My Bloody Valentine. And as I said, I thought the whodunit aspect of it was kind of weak. Even when Donna Wilkes is wielding that revolver at the end, I still kind of knew, okay, she's not the real killer. Again, spoiler alert, I should say. So I mean, Schizoid has a reputation of being a bit of a dreary movie. I thought it was half decent, but nothing more than that. So that's my tuppence.
Okay, well, thank you, Eric. Nathan, is this one you're familiar with?
I wasn't familiar with. This is like the first time that I had actually watched it. I thought I'd seen it before, but I was wrong. And maybe I was thinking of Blood Song. But yeah, it's an interesting, movie. It's like Eric said, there are good moments here. There are several of the death scenes that I thought were really well done. Great. I love the chase scene in the beginning when she's in the abandoned house and every single door she opens up falls apart. I thought that was kind of fun. And then, of course, when her body's found, that was a lot of fun, too. I love the hot tub death scene. But I just didn't care about, Klaus Kinski with his daughter and all this because I don't know that he's necessarily set up to be the hero or anything, but he's like a bad person. He's like a horrible person in the film. And yeah, he's all pervy on his daughter and stuff. And I don't know. I'm just like, it's very odd that he's kind of, nothing really happens to him. He, is able to be, pervy with them, I guess. And yeah, he's a terrible psychiatrist because he's sleeping with his patients. Absolutely ridiculous. And I love Donna Wilkes, but I just felt that her character in this movie was, I don't know. I feel like they could have taken that whole aspect out and just made it more of a slasher movie, and I would have liked it even more. I don't, like I said, I didn't dislike it whatsoever, but it is an odd film. And I just prefer a little different. Obviously I prefer the more Friday the 13th style slashings. I think those, work a lot better for me. Yeah, it's just one of those movies where I just feel like there's wasted potential because there are some really good scenes in there, but overall it's just, to me, it's just okay. It's an okay movie. Nothing more. I don't know if I would watch it again, to be honest. But I don't regret watching it. I thought it was good for a one-time watch. So, yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you, Nathan. Joseph, how about you?
Yeah, if you'd asked me 25 years ago when I first and last saw Schizoid, I probably would have told you to skip it, but I actually had a good deal of fun with the film this go around. First off, you have Donna Wilkes as Allison, and I think we can all agree she's very Inga-esque, especially during that mother's dress sequence where she's just like, I wear a mother's dress, I'll rip off mother's dress over and over, and she gets real loud.
I hate you!
Yeah, exactly. She's that type of Daniela in that scene, and I loved it. And of course, you have Klaus Kinski on hand as this like I said, this contemptible bastard of a therapist in that he's sleeping with more than one of his patients. And he gives the Allison character, who's his daughter, by the way, I guess he gives her plenty of reasons to be Inga-esque because, one moment he's seductively leering at her. And then the next he's treating her like a 3-year-old child. So it's a very odd family dynamic going on over there in the Klaus Kinski household. And, I couldn't help but feel sorry for the women in this film who were probably told that there would be sex scenes involved, but not with the reptilian kind of Klaus Kinski character. And I can't imagine they had an intimacy coordinator on set. And if they did, I'd imagine Klaus probably ate them. But as a slasher film, I thought the murders were spaced accordingly. And while they don't really vary in design, it's scissor stabbings for the most part. There's always a build-up to them. So we're not just getting, random scissor stabbings. I like the build-up that we get there. The scene in the alley, the chase sequence in the alley is a good example of the build-up involved here. And I loved how this film kind of utilized some really impressive handheld camera work during some of those stalk and slash scenes. Anyone worth their salt will predict the killer early on. And let me just semi-spoil it by saying no matter how much they want you to believe it's Klaus Kinski's character doing the killings, it most certainly is not Klaus Kinski doing the killings. It's not even Christopher Lloyd's creepy handyman doing the killings. We're dealing, with those sort of red herrings here. It's got lots of those drab 1980 colors that I love, held over from the late 70s. I especially loved, as Eric said, Julie's banana yellow Volkswagen Beetle. And I love Craig Wasson's choice of wallpaper at the newspaper headquarters. I mean, it's something you had to have experienced to appreciate. So, yeah, I mean, none of this really adds up to much, but it was a lot better than I remembered. I mean, I liked the characters. I thought the story was engaging enough. You know, like I said, the murders were paced adequately. We got several Inga meltdowns, and, you know, to me, it's aesthetically pleasing. So, yeah, I'm going to recommend it.
Cool. Excellent. And it's probably the only slasher movie or any movie where the killer's revealed through their use of wallpaper paste, which was...
Yeah, that was a nice touch, yes.
I love the scene where she's in the elevator with Christopher Lloyd and it's all like tense and everything. And he pulls out this really long screwdriver and they're making you think he's going to stab her. And then he uses the screwdriver to push the elevator button.
It's, it's kind of, I mean, we do spoil these so we can discuss the killer's motivation and everything. So if you haven't seen the movie, then I would stop it here and go and watch it before you do. But without further ado, the killer turns out to be the Craig Wasson character who has been driven insane by the therapy group who he blames for causing his wife to divorce him. So rather than killing Klaus Kinski, which would make much more sense, he goes after the other women in the group. So he is a... the way he comes across, because I mean, he always looks like this kind of amiable everyman kind of character. Certainly in a film like Body Double, he's got that kind of not amiable, but he looks like like an everyman kind of character who finds himself in extraordinary situations. So in this, he comes across so kooky that he is immediately what you think is either going to be a red herring or the killer. So there's very little kind of subtlety kind of in that. I mean, the Donna Wilkes character is so over the top and so fucked up, basically. And the scene where she drives she goes into the garage and gets into the car and starts basically gassing herself by turning on the car and shutting the garage door. And then you've got Klaus Kinski outside pleading with her to not kill herself. And she's saying, "You killed my mother," and he said, "Your mother died of cancer," and it was just like goes on and on. It's just kind of completely bonkers scene. And then in the end, you find out that Donna Wilkes' character is the one that's been sending the letters to these women or to the main character, and is shown to be potentially homicidal, but then turns into a kind of frightened little girl at the end. But also then turns into the final girl because she kills Craig Wasson with a pair of scissors. Although, did you notice that when it's probably the worst stabbing in the back with a pair of scissors?
Yeah, I know. It was shocking.
Yeah, I was going to say, can someone die by being stabbed in the back with a pair of scissors once?
Well, if it hit a certain nerve, maybe, I don't know. But I was going to say the editing in this film is really weird because that bicycle scene where the killer knocks her off the bicycle, it doesn't even show a crash. It's just like you see the car hit the tire and then, she's on the ground.
And I thought that it was ridiculous a little bit how after the very first death, we cut to Julie talking to Craig Wasson's character, and he immediately starts talking about how he don't like that group and how he blames them for the divorce. And like as soon as he did, I'm like, well, he's probably the killer.
Same at me. And I was like, oh my God, I guessed the killer correctly. It must have been really easy.
They could only made it more obvious if he was sat there watching The Bird of Crystal Plumage on TV, couldn't they, really?
Well, you see his blonde hair and his silhouette in the car in the beginning. You could tell it's him. I mean, the lighting on that scene gives it away, even if the plot didn't.
It's very strange. I mean, the background, it'd be interesting to see what was meant to be rather than what was. But interestingly, one thing, a little bit about just while we're talking about being stabbed in the back with a pair of scissors, because an interview with the director, David Paulson, said that apparently Craig Wasson had to go to hospital after being injured by Donna Wilkes during that scene. And I just kind of, it just seemed to be so, it'd be like somebody like lightly pressing a pair of safety scissors into Play-Doh. It didn't look particularly violent. But there you go. This shows the magic of movie making.
Yeah.
So, Well, let's talk a little bit about background, because so we can pull in some stuff, and obviously we're going to mention some of the stuff that talk about. We talked about this before, that when we covered Creature, aka Titan Fine, for the Vinegar Syndrome release, that it was an MGM title, and nothing against the fine folks at Vinegar Syndrome, but MGM are notoriously censor happy when it comes to commentaries, and it seemed that most of our commentary about Klaus Kinski's kind of background may have ended up on the cutting room floor with a pair of scissors. So we are going to talk kind of a little bit about some of that, but backgrounds. So Nathan, do you have anything on Schizoid for us?
That's a no.
No, okay.
I have everything Joseph has. And I'm going to let him read it because he needs the exposure.
Joseph, do you have anything for us?
Not much. One thing I wanted to touch on is that I think you mentioned it in your review, Justin. You said this film kind of felt like a TV movie. Now, I'm wondering if it was meant to be a TV movie, because in the opening credits, it says guest starring Richard Hurd. He plays the main detective. Now, they typically do the guest starring kind of thing on TV shows and not movies. So I'm kind of wondering if this was actually made to be for television. I know it was released to theaters, but I mean, I don't know.
Well, it's funny around this kind of time. I mean, if you look at films, say like Don't Answer the Phone or the Toolbox Murders, they very much have that kind of police procedural thing going, which kind of very, very much to me feels like a TV style procedural.
Streets of San Francisco or something.
Yeah, I wonder if that's more, or The Killer's Delight, or films like that. Whether or not it's because they were capitalising on the popularity of cop shows, those kind of cop shows in the early 80s and the late 70s, for adding those in. Again, they may have borrowed some of that from stuff like the success of kind of the movies like The French Connection and stuff like that, possibly kind of those police kind of procedural dramas that were kind of popular in the 70s, and also the Giallo as well had a lot of that going on as well. So I don't know, but also I imagine, not being too cynical, but I imagine it's quite cheap to film lots of middle-aged men in beige nylon smoking in offices. But I might be wrong on that.
And there is a lot of it in this movie.
There is a lot of it in this movie. But to answer your question, this wasn't. It was meant to be a cheap movie in so much that it was one of the very first movies that was made by Mahanam Golan and Yoram Globus after they kind of acquired the Canon studio, which was originally kind of British-based studio, and they director Dave Paulson contacted them when they put out. They said they wanted to make 3 quick movies to basically start the canon, as it were. And interestingly, when talking about the TV kind of style of some of the stuff, is David Paulson went on to after this to direct Knots Landing, Dallas, and Dynasty. So he very much moved into that kind of TV sphere. Now, he was given $1 million. He was told, I think, you have $1 million or less to make this movie, and one of the conditions is you have to have Klaus Kinski in this because he's under contract to Canon Films. So he went away and made this very, very quickly. Well, he wrote it very, very quickly, and he kind of it was produced very quickly. I think it was announced in February of 1980, originally under the title Molded to Murder, which I don't understand. Do you guys understand what that would mean, Molded to Murder?
I have no idea.
Justin, you said at the start that David Paulson directed The Weekend Murders. Do you mean Savage Weekend?
So I do mean Savage Weekend, yes. Weekend Murders was the Giallo, wasn't it? So, yeah. Yes. So,
which we've covered. I think we've covered Savage Weekend many, many years ago.
Yes, because that features Caitlin O'Heaney, who went on to be in He Knows You're Alone. So, I mean, I think this is his only 2 directorial features. But he basically, the bottom line is the movie was taken by Canon Films and recut to turn it into more of a slasher movie, which kind of makes sense. He said that they withdrew funding at the last minute for pickup shots, which he said would have made more sense, made the movie make more sense. So he said he didn't speak to them for 8 years after this movie. He said he wanted it. It wasn't designed as a slasher movie as such. It was meant to be more of a psychological thriller. So it kind of explains the kind of jigsaw nature of the movie and why it kind of seems to be all over the place. He claims that they came in, recut stuff, possibly, the scene with the I don't know if the scene where the kind of necking teenage couple find the first murder victim, which is pure Friday the 13th, whether or not that was in the original cut or that was added by Cannon Films later. But it was announced in February of 1980 in the Hollywood Reporter, and it started filming in March. So it actually started filming within a month of it being announced. Then the title was changed to Murder by Mail, which again, and then it was announced for sale at Cannes International Film Festival before getting released in early September of 1980, which is an incredibly fast turnaround for a movie even back then. It got released David Paulson says that the film barely got released, but actually made over $4 million at the box office in the United States, which is more than some other better known slasher movies out there. Unsurprisingly, Siskel and Ebert hated it, and when they reviewed it in October of 1980 on their sneak previews, they said the film was gruesome and despicable and expressed a hatred for women. Some other reviews from the time, the Fort Lauderdale News compared it to the Giallo Torso, and they said that as awful as some of the rarely seen European melodramas Kinski turned out in the late 1960s, by the time the killer was identified as one of the 3 people left in the theatre and the other 2 were asleep. It's fair to say this movie got I couldn't find pretty much any good reviews of this movie. The people in Florida said the word on Schizoid is rotten. It's difficult to see how a picture this bad could be made, even by accident. The Philadelphia Daily News says it's the kind of film that makes you want to go out and kill somebody. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette said after seeing and becoming schizoid, there's a little something that says a murder in all of us. So essentially saying that they hated the movie so much that she wanted to go out and kill somebody. And Variety said it was exploitable, which meant obviously that it can be sold as a kind of to a certain audience, but was too slow and not scary enough for maximum box office. So I think the problem was, and why it has this, not ironically, but the schizoid nature is that it was directed as a more of a thoughtful psychodrama, and it was kind of retro cut by Cannon Films into a slasher movie. Now, there's an interview with the director in a book called Twisted Visions, which I have, and I forgot to write down the author, but it's definitely worth picking up. It's got some great interviews with directors of horror movies and other exploitation movies from the 70s and 80s. He talks quite candidly about the film. Now, interestingly, he says Klaus Kinski was fine with him, which, of course, you know anything about Klaus Kinski, he kind of, especially David Schmoller, who directed him in Crawl Space, infamously produced a short called Please Kill Mr. Kinski, after his recollections of working with him on Crawl Space after they tried to fire him from the movie, and in the end one of the Italian producers said that he would hire a hitman to kill Klaus Kinski. So you've got, and Werner Herzog famously had a feud with Klaus Kinski after working with him many times, including allegedly one time when he went up to his house with a tin of petrol to burn it down with him inside. So Klaus Kinski had a reputation for working with filmmakers, and we talked about that actually on Titan Find Creature, that he wasn't that easy to work with on that movie. But the most troubling back then, and certainly now, was the way that he would treat fellow female co-stars and also female crew. he kind of he was famous for essentially feeling up or sexually assaulting, I think, in not to put too fine a point on it, some of the female co-stars. He did this on this movie. The woman who plays the erotic dancer said that that he would put his hands where they shouldn't go, and she was so shocked she didn't know what to do. Marianne Hill in the scene where in bed together said that she was mostly nude with him, and said it wasn't pleasant at all for her. But said that Klaus Kinski went over the top a few times, but she was very strong throughout, is what the director said, whatever that means. Now, the thing that I found most shocking was that it turned out that apparently in his memoir, Klaus Kinski's memoir, he uses a pseudonym or a kind of a nom de plume for the character, but he had an affair with somebody on this movie, which is, it says in his interview, was Donna Wilkes. So, which is kind of even creepier when you think Donna Wilkes is playing his daughter, and especially with the allegations that have been made by Natasha Kinski and his other daughter, specifically his other daughter, about how he abused them. It kind of makes it even sort of creepier. So it's kind of viewing this through kind of a modern lens. That Klaus Kinski was a complete and utter creep that was allowed to get away with far too much in his personal life and also on film sets just because he had a name. But interestingly, also the other thing which the director alludes to was that Klaus Kinski wasn't the only, in his the way he puts it, creep on the movie. He said that Craig Wasson worked well on the set, but had problems with other actors and crew. And he said that in the interview, he said there was some ugliness that took place on the set. And if you can believe this, that Klaus Kinski took David Paulson aside and told him that Craig Wasson was crazy. So I kind of quite what went on, I don't know. He says that apparently the fight scene between Craig Wasson and Klaus Kinski, where Klaus Kinski goes after him with a hammer, he says, if you recalled correctly, the fight got very severe and they both hated each other, and Klaus Kinski got whacked on the head and they had to take him to hospital. So, there's obviously some interesting stories from behind the scenes on this movie. So that's all I've got at the moment on Schizoid.
Wow.
So, what was the consensus on the group, Joseph, about this movie?
Let's see. 23 comments for Schizoid. The Mike Justice writes, one of my favorite horror micro genres is sleazy Hollywood slasher noir from this era. And he lists Don't Answer the Phone, New Year's Evil, and Body Double. And he says, and this is a great example. Sub Brian De Palma-esque trash with scissor kills, Klaus Kinski playing yet another red herring psychiatrist after Slaughter Hotel, and Donna Wilkes being crazy. What's not to love? Scott Lowry says, cannot warm up to it no matter how hard I try. Great cast, but it's so freaking bland. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Listen on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and about 1 billion other podcatchers. We're also on Patreon, and this month we're having a nightmare on a certain street. Fan adulation and Sunday coupons can be sent to the Hysteria Continues at gmail.com.
Fantastic. Thank you. And yeah, keep on writing in, and I hope you're enjoying our Patreon exclusive content. So, and I hope, obviously, with a disclaimer, everything I said was allegedly in case Klaus Kinski's ghost sues me, which is obviously what MGM were worried about. So, but yeah, I'm fairly, mind you, what a terrifying idea that would be to have Klaus Kinski's ghost suddenly turning up and harassing you.
I think I'd rather go to jail.
So, well, I guess that means that let's see if you can top yourself, Erik, with your joke of the week for Schizoid.
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
I was once phoned by one of the stars of this film. It was a close call. Close call.
Oh, Erik. That was one of your better ones,
I like
actually.
that one.
I think.
That was good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, I guess it remains to be seen to see what we're covering next time on The Hysteria Continues. And we got some feedback, which we're going to keep for the next show, because we're running a little bit over, and I know some of us are a little bit short of time today, so we're going to try and keep it brief, although this is one of our longest ones for a while, as it were. So who's up next?
It's me, and we are picking, because I think it'll be date appropriate, the My Bloody Valentine remake in 3D from 2009, was it?
Yes. Yeah. Excellent. So, let's all see Jensen Ackles' Pickaxe in 3D coming at you. So, okay, I guess it just remains to be said goodbye. Before we do that, I'll say what we're playing out with. And I think even Erik will admit this is a very, very appropriate song for Schizoid, which is Christine by Susan the Banshees, which is about a famous...
A strawberry girl and a banana split lady, and also now she's in purple, now she's a turtle. Ooh, great lyrics, Susie.
It's about a very famous case of a woman with multiple personalities.
And was she a purple turtle at one stage?
Is her name Susie?
So we're playing out with that. And we're just about to record our Carry On Camping episode over on Patreon. So matron, join us over there. So, thank you for listening, and say goodbye to the good people.
Bye.
Goodbye.
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 Bye.